Hi, can you hear and see me?
Yes, I can see you and hear you. So, hi, Gizem, how are you?
Thank you so much. And how are you?
I'm great. So, just give us a little background about what you'll be talking about today.
Okay. First of all, thank you so much for having me today. It's a great honor to be hosted by the Global AI Hub platform. Let me introduce myself just a little bit before I start my talk. I'm currently a PhD candidate and I'm a research assistant at the University of Szeged Faculty of Law. And I have actually a colorful background. I have a BA degree in information management and MA degree in international relations. And I have an LLM in law also. And I somehow could put together all these different kind of departments and the knowledge. And I could somehow find out the path between all these professions and found out my real way to continue my academic profession. And my PhD topic is actually focusing on the applicability of the GDPR on the social robots. So actually, it's also the title of this talk today. But I was conducting different and interesting methodologies and techniques in my PhD thesis. I was using some futures research methodology. So I just put it together with my previous background, and I just focus on law, case law, and put it together with some of the expert interviews. And finally, I'm going to defend my PhD at the end of this month, hopefully. Today in my talk, I'll be pointing some of the theoretical establishments or foundations of my work. Well, I have some extra guys behind me watching my fishes. I wanted to prepare actually something visual, but then I changed my mind and try to keep this talk as short as possible so I can have some questions from you. And so if you're bored just watching me all the time, just watch my fishes back, okay? Well, I was just looking for some answers to the following main question. Can the GDPR be fully applicable to the AI technology, advanced technologies in broader sense, but specific to the AI technology? Fully means here, of course, what does that mean in a conceptual meaning? That can it really cover all the related aspects of this technology, although it was written technologically neutral, which I think that it's a big mistake. This can cause, I think, different applications within the 27 member states jurisdiction at the same time, which I think would be a problem from the European law point of view. But I will mainly focus on data protection issues, but you can ask me some other questions related to AI in general, like autonomous weapons, wizard of all setting, exoskeletons, or use of AI system by public institutions, fairness, bias, decision-making, price discrimination, etc. I'm not expert on none of them, but while I was conducting my work, I had some chances to read some of those topics, and I could just enhance my knowledge. So if you just ask me some more questions, I will be able to open my black box and can give you some right explanations, although it is not very accurate. So we will see. So I chose these social robots because, well, I wanted to test a type of an AI system that can be really personal, that can even be led to our most private places, that is our home. And besides being a part of the family, these social robots can be really a part of our life and part of our family, which increases the level of trust of the users thanks to the anthropomorphizing effect that can later cause users to share more private issues with it, right? And with their sensors, they might be always on own mode, collecting data about our pictures, voices, conversations, etc. I call this ability of the social robots as unpredictable data collection by design, which I will later touch it upon. So they can establish real social relations, understand human behaviors and emotions, interact them with several ways, adapt themselves according to the dynamic social environments. They can exhibit some personality and character that may learn, develop social competencies. This is actually a kind of broad definition of what a social robot is. I don't know whether you see the Google's patent entitled Methods and Systems for Robot Personality Development, but you would better understand what I mean here by the social robot. So social robots are the ones that can be really helpful for human completing their daily tasks, such as home care, cleaning, cooking, maybe, and elder and patient care, entertainment, and they can offer some security-related tasks. And thanks to the reinforcement learning technique that is making possible for social robots to learn based on feedbacks, which I believe that can train the system to generate more personal outcomes with a real-time data. Otherwise, don't really ask me why the reinforcement learning technique is mostly used, deep learning technique by the social roboticists. The probability for us to meet such robots in the close future means 20 years or so on, is quite high, I would say. Of course, it depends on huge hardware deployment in real world and its interaction with the system that would be developed. But according to the International Federation of Robotics, such household robots are about 16 million available right now in the market, and this number is expected to grow to about 62 million units by 2022. I know that there are some failures with development of social robot, as such was the case with one of the social robots forerunner, Dr. Cynthia Griesel's Jibo, but the ambition still goes on. I think there are signals lighted by the big five, that is, Facebook, Amazon, Apple, Google, and Google's Alphabet and Microsoft, towards developing such social organisms. For example, Google's Everyday Robot project, run by X company, aims to bring such social robots in our everyday life in an unstructured environment. Well, this would be my short introduction, and let me go on with some of the basic hypotheses that I considered during my research. After a long and careful literature review, I realized that there are 3 types of obstacles before GDPR's applicability on the person household robots. I grouped them as the technical, legal, and practical issues based on the knowledge that I gained from both legal and technical academia, I would say. Let me start with the technical issues that may lead GDPR's fail on AI technology in terms of applications. To me, big data and AI applications are being created to be able to predict the unpredictable one, right? And AI systems, without a doubt, blood is data, where its brain is the algorithm. After using a certain amount of data to reach a model that can be tested on new data, the outcomes will be used for finding out the personal tendencies that are indeed classified as personal data. So the outcomes even are the personal data. The classic example is that the girl who received marketing brochures related to her pregnancy, and it was a bit trouble for her between her and her father, but the data there was not explicitly collected to predict whether she's pregnant or not. It was collected to see the patterns in her shopping behavior. Can you see the purpose creep here? With the words of course, Bart Kasters and Helena Ursic. I'm doing some references also, so I'm not stealing any references important. After releasing the final AI system, I think that it's not really possible to come out with a certain list of possible outcomes indicating the exact purposes of this system. Purpose limitation is indeed one of the principles of the GDPR. Whether someone is eligible for bank credit is a prediction, but whether the same person may have a breast cancer, therefore is not eligible for the bank credit, it certainly is a personal data. Every piece of new data may change the way algorithm thinks like, that can lead unpredictable outcomes. Therefore, the AI systems are unpredictable by design, with the words of Jason Miller and Ian Kerr. Rest in peace anyway for Ian Kerr. But whatever unpredictable result will the machine generate, it will be always the human who will decide, who will control these outcomes, in what ways and in what concepts to use it or not. It will be always the human who will decide it. I'm aware of that. And what brings this to us? Of course, I will turn to the question of consent in this case. If we cannot make a clear purpose statement before the data processing takes place, can we speak about the validity of the consent? Can anyone guarantee an intelligent social robot with a task for cooking will not start evaluating the eating habits of the people at home and then make predictions about how their health conditions are based on their eating habits maybe their physiological data or psychological data, etc. The robot's aim was only cooking, right? Thanks to the unpredictable data collection by design, triggering the companies and AI system to be multi-purpose, therefore make it more useful and more attractive. I would conclude this part maybe with the words of the European Commission once they stated in one of their communication papers that robots empowered by AI may act in such ways that were not envisaged at the time when the system was first put into operation. So actually the lawmaker is right now aware of this fact, but I'm sure while the time drafting the GDPR, they were not really aware of such fact. Though I can give an example that the definition of AI by the European Union was put way much later on when the GDPR entered into force. The main focus in this talk is the consent rule, which is one of the legal bases for data controllers processing personal data. Although there are several other legal bases to lean on by the data controllers, by the companies, the practices show that consent is the most referred legal basis by the tech companies. Indeed, it's understandable because once they tie the user up on their services with an agreement, they can further offer more personalized services by processing their data. When you buy a mobile phone under normal circumstances, it can work without processing much of your personal data. But later on, when you are downloading the applications, the other possible applications or maybe some system updates, it requires more and more personal data by the time. Since the topic of this talk is about data processing activities of a personal household social robots, I think that it's crucially important for the robot to process personal data. This is how the robot can get know the user, including the persons the user interacts, and serve them better, not just at home by one user, but there can be multiple users the robot is shared by. Well, what might be the problem with the consent here? I raised here two main things related to the practical issues and then finalize with a legal issue. So that will be the last part of my talk. GDPR is a risk-based legislation, as the saying goes. I would like to ask you a very nice question from my heart. So I'm expecting you to answer also from your heart. How many of you are truly aware of the risks that may appear as a result of processing of your personal data? How could you be even aware of those risks by understanding the real technical and legal information if you're an average user? Have you ever and often read the consent information? Consent basically doesn't operate in the right way as it should be, I think. A Eurobarometer survey conducted almost after a year the GDPR entered into force shows that 47% of the respondents do only partially read, and 40% never read the privacy statements, giving as a reason that they either find them too long to read or unclear or difficult to understand. Well, I'm not surprised about that. And I expect even less percentages if the question is about information on the risks of AI system or about functionality of the AI system. The GDPR, unfortunately, does not order data controllers to take into consideration the personality of the individuals by the means of their understanding level, such as the individual belong to a vulnerable group, or is a technology group, or is not even interested in a technology at all. The only different practice could be observed if the individual is child, but this is most probably because the data controllers are obliged to take this into account based on the GDPR explicitly. Moreover, if we are talking about automated decision-making system, the GDPR does give the right to request explanation after the evaluation is made, not before, meaning that until someone is classified as a criminal almost with 80% of confidence level, and unless asked for an explanation, it is less likely to know how the data was evaluated. Once the data is out, it's impossible to pull it back from this virtual galaxy. Think about your biometric data just collected by the social robot at home. Your biometric data never change. There are two types of data: the ones that are stabilized, the ones that are dynamic data. And the biometric data of yours is a stable data. So once it is out, it's impossible to get it back. And it's always will be forever in the robotics brain, right? And it can be really used for very cool training data. I believe also, just one note here in parentheses, I believe that right to be forgotten is not real, and it will never be a real practice in some sense. Of course, there are problems related to bias and discrimination, but I will not go into that topic in this talk. If you just raise some questions, maybe I can try to answer. Another point I would like to add here is regarding the social robots manipulation capability, in quotation marks. Well, that actually, once again, is related to the term of free consent. Some researchers show that the human users tend to trust their robot partners. Therefore, they easily could share their private issues with them. One research result was really interesting in the sense, once it was asked for a couple of people to shut the robot down before and after they interact with it, more than half of the test subjects couldn't do it as they established emotional tie with it. They just didn't want to kill the robot, as they said. We can argue that such robots will always be missing a real personality or real emotions or feelings, but does that really matter in the concept of personal data processing? We are not trying to simulate people, but simulate human, but what they give us as a perception is like they are lifelike, humanoid, right? We call them as humanoid also. Once people trust and emotionally open for manipulation, we cannot talk about a free consent, as the same case is going with the medical data processing. I find it quite unnecessary to sign consent papers at hospitals and handling our data as it's one of the earth thinking. I mean, I cannot really understand how a person wouldn't be under stress at a hospital when it's about his or her health situation and not accepting the consent papers or rules of the hospital, I would say. Last but not least, I wouldn't like to go into the liability question, but I really would like to note here that there will not be an electronic personality assigned for the AI systems, at least in the close future, and the responsibility is still on the shoulders of the data controllers, or let's say real persons. However, responsibility and liability are closely related to the obligations of the persons, right? Can a user of a social robot be called as a data collector, the data controller? Have you ever thought about it? For example, a natural person placing a CCTV camera around his or her home for whatever reason can be even the most extreme situation, like for personal security. Is that person responsible for informing the other people that might be subjected for the camera surveillance? Well, some of the case law of the European court says that yes, he or she should. It's a must, actually. So once you bring the robot home, you might be responsible for collecting the consent of other people entering in or walking around your home, instead of only and always pointing out the legal person's possible wrong actions. So we can now enlarge our view and legalize how to handle the possible consequences of having such intelligent systems as a natural person, though it's also as a user. So I think that would be my talk today, and I would be really happy to receive some questions if possible. I'm checking the lead comments, but I don't see any question yet. So maybe somebody from Global AI Hub can help me.
Hello again. So we're really glad for your great talk. First of all, I really enjoyed it. So I think, let me check if you have some questions. Otherwise, actually, I have lots of questions to ask you since I was so interested in your entire journey. So first of all, could you just tell us a little bit about how you got interested in this topic and, how everything started?
How everything started? It's a good question, because yeah, it should have a history, right? As I said, I have a BA degree in information management, and for us, it's really it's really important how to manage the information, the content, and also the data. But once I was also into the legal aspect of managing the data and also about human rights, I saw that right to data protection is one of our basic human rights. And I was just trying to make a connection between, as a general user also, I'm very interested in technology. And as a general user, I was just trying to find how these technologies impacting our basic rights and how these technologies are managing our personal data also at the same time. For me, of course, Cambridge Analytica was one of the hit, as it was the same for all the academia, I think. This is just what we heard. There are many things that we don't really hear, but that is really happening. And I was just trying to imagine how we willingly share our all personal and private issues, and how it is just misuse or disuse, how would you put it in correct way, by the really big guys that we don't really want to be into, and how they could make profit out of the things that we are willingly sharing. So these are all those issues that were in my mind, and I'm very much affected by all these sci-fi films and books and
actually.
Yeah. So yeah, and I was just making some research about it, and I found social robots quite realistic, not even a sci-fi. So I found worth to just grab it a bit more, and that's how it started.
Actually, that's a really good cause, because generally, like when someone, or especially me, like when I think too much about going into data and stuff, the thing that I'm concerned the most about is at some point, unwillingly also, I will be stealing data or just getting data which people probably don't even know I'm taking, and that's something that's really negative. So what you did is actually a really, really good initiative.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations on that, and I hope you enjoy a lot of success ahead, and your dissertation and everything goes really well. So best of luck for that. It was a great pleasure having you here, and I really hope we can have you again.
Thank you very much for the opportunity. Thank you very much for all the guys who are watching me here. And yeah, I would also love to be a host once again at the Global AI platform. And I would just say peace, love, and health.
Thanks a lot. So have a great day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you everyone for tuning in. So we'll have another webinar next week. So I hope to see you all there. Have a great day. And thank you once again. Bye-bye.